Greetings, sending you all some warm, positive vibrations. So I have never gone live so much before, but there is, I don't know, something about today where there's so many things are on my radar as I move around quietly that are on my soul to express, that are on my soul to express today. So if you haven't been to my channel before, welcome. This is Body-Culinary. I am a personal trainer, fitness coach, nutrition consultant, a mom, a woman, obviously an Afro person, but also a human being. And so what I share on this channel is encouragement to start growing something. Everybody can grow something from wherever you are. I started out in an apartment. I encourage folks to start, cultivate, continue, pick back up a personal movement practice. First, because of how it makes you feel, and as a form of therapy, and looking good and feeling good are just more of a benefit. I also encourage peaceful consumption, or wherever you may be, that may be the least harm possible. Firstly, to your own self and your body temple, and then quite naturally extending that out to the environment and the creatures that we share the space with in the environment. Yeah. So those are some of the things that I share on this channel. And quite often as I move around quietly in the garden, sometimes things just stop me in my tracks. And some of the things in my quiet or things that I come across, I feel like I get so much confirmation. So much confirmation of things I've been thinking of. So let me see if I can not just burst with all these things in my mind's eye, and let's see if I can whittle it down. So the thing that just came up for me as I was moving around, something that showed up on my radar, is a breeding ground, and it's something I've been thinking of. It's very easy for us to look outside and place blame, and sometimes we are accurate in assessing who is accountable for what and roles others play. It can be more challenging for the ego part, of which all of us have that part of our psyche that it has a purpose, and its purpose is to defend us. Again, if anything I say doesn't resonate, you're welcome to leave it respectfully right here. And then it's easy to go like this, and then I think that we don't benefit when we don't acknowledge what our accountability is, even if that is in remaining in situations, even if that is remaining in ignorance of certain situations. So I'm going to say this conversation, this communication could perhaps benefit anyone, male, female, folks from other different packaging, different cultures. But I wonder, of women, do we consider what our contribution is to a breeding ground right now of narcissists? It is a term right now that is trending. Much more knowledge is being had and being observed and studied about narcissism. And as I was just moving around, cleaning, doing some work, and I have a tendency for many years to study while I'm moving around. And I like to be surrounded by some of the best thinking minds. And you also got to balance that out by turning everything off and just listening to nature. But in any event, something that a professor said stopped me to the core. He said he was shaken to the bone, but what he confirmed that had been on my radar kind of, I don't know, it really stood out on my radar. And that is, what are we doing to contribute? And what's our accountability for the environment of narcissists that we see? And something that he noted is right now in some work that he's doing to prepare for the upcoming term, right? For folks that are studying psychology. As he's preparing the syllabus, he's done a lot of reading, a lot of research with his clients, with a very wide community, and digesting studies of young people worldwide, he said in Brazil, Nigeria, Europe, globally. And he said what he noticed is that in the current climate that he's noticing with this particular, the generation of millennials, this new upcoming generation, and maybe, I don't know, now I don't keep up with the generations, boomers or Z, X, but the current, even younger generation, he said that he noticed that we are producing people across the globe that don't have emotions. That stopped me. That shook me to the core. It's more so shook me. It stopped me in my tracks because it was a confirmation. Something is off and something is wrong. And I think that perhaps our discernment and having the kind of discernment that we can activate to the point where it will guide our decision making and how we get into action and what we abstain from has been compromised by trauma. So, in a bit of a situation, a pickle, if you will, that only we perhaps have a vested interest in changing the course of, applying corrective action. In a nutshell, we are surrounded by narcissism, and we are noticing this could be seen out for a while now that we have children, very young people, very young adults engaging in activities of violence to their peers, parents, just in society, the bullying. It's at a fever pitch. So it would be too easy to put this on the government. And I think even the mentality of people not taking accountability for our individual roles in it, and not just to sit and bash ourselves and to sit in doom and gloom, but to see what are we contributing to the environment. A great example, I would say, is in the music industry. So much is coming out about the music industry, and folks want to go into Illuminati or conspiracy theories. Some of that stuff may be valid, but however, what I notice and what I've been able to piece together, the patterns of, there's something missing for most of the camps, most of the conversation, which is personal responsibility, personal accountability, not to be confused with being a martyr. Quite often, I've also noticed that we're given the narrative or we engage in a religious or pseudo-spiritual bypass, right? We're very uncomfortable. We get very defensive. We even zone out when it comes to having uncomfortable conversations of accountability for what our role is in this breeding ground of narcissists. I think maybe even perhaps women. We want to put the blame on men. Men want to put the blame on women. Somehow there's something, it's confusing, but also I found shortcuts to me are patterns when you step back objectively and look at the patterns. And even if you can't articulate it, there's something very palpable here. And again, what this man noted was we are producing, and we have produced a class, he said, even a subspecies of human beings without emotions. I invite you just for a moment to sit with that. How do we, or how have we managed to produce a subspecies of human beings devoid of emotions? We say we are what we eat, we are what we consume. Energetically, if we roll back the tape, if we look at right now what is being encouraged, and again, I'm not coming from a place of a cult or a religion, just common sense and accountability as women. We're not encouraged to think very deeply about the energy, the consciousness, the intention with which we are coming together to engage intimately and to swap energy and body fluids. And so again, this man said, which I didn't need him to say, but it was confirmation. There is now walking about the planet a subspecies of human beings without emotion, and they come in all colors, in all packages. If we think of the neglect, the parents that don't have time, the parents that are not, I'm not demonizing anyone, this is from a perspective of observation, that are not mentally and emotionally present due to trauma. On my own, it occurs to me like a vampire bite, right? You were traumatized. And I observed on my own, even from quite a young age, that either two things will happen. Either you will be a champion for young adults and children and be very protective of them because of you want to avoid that happening to another person, or somewhere in your mind you'll rationalize and justify inflicting inflicting your will onto others and your dysfunction onto others. In particular, when there's no accountability and there's no consequences. So we can inflict and expose children and young people to a lot with no consideration that their processing abilities are different, that they're not able to speak for themselves. I mean, even right now, where grown adults are projecting vices, appetites, processing of adults, traumatized adults with unresolved trauma onto children. So it's just something to contemplate and not just to stay there in contemplation of how is it that we have arrived at the point where we have produced and are producing young people and persons that don't have emotions, have a lack of empathy. And I ask you to turn and look around. This is just confirmation for me, whereas many things I might have thought were delicious didn't occur to me as food anymore because the trauma, even certain, I'm not knocking anyone, even certain narcotics or things that are socially acceptable in terms of drinking and smoking, like the energetically watching so many people dear to me and the adults around me having a need and an addiction to zoning out and not being present, and then not being present what the children have been subjected to, no protection, not being present. It doesn't really occur to me as enticing. Maybe food is upon a frontier. And even then, we're not, it's like our sensibilities are numbed out. And I have observed a connection, a definite pattern of connection to our consumption and our lack of sensitivity. And maybe perhaps there are many that don't want to be sensitive. I've had folks tell me if I don't consume the flesh of, and again, this is not to demonize anybody's food choices. I've eaten everything on, most everything, many things on the planet, including flesh. I just choose to not to. At this point, I abstain from it. And I'm not knocking anyone that does, but I ask us to consider once the way certain things in energy consumption and food occur to me, and what is the cost to others, and to see their suffering. There's certain things that in my consciousness that I can't do. Like, I have other choices for what I can consume. I have choices for things that I can do where I don't have to consciously and willingly subject other people to suffering, and also understanding that there are consequences. The things that I do go beyond me, they affect other people. That somehow right now is missing, deactivated, dormant. How are we arriving at this? Are we devolving as a species, right? Not having the sensitivity to feel. Um, there's something perhaps you can look it up called biophotons, and biophotons and Kirlian photography. Again, I don't know it all. It can be quite a rabbit hole, and I don't want you to get so consumed that you don't get about the business of life and other things. However, it has been said if you ever watch a school of fish swimming together and flocks of birds flying with each other, they're not talking quite often they're quiet, but they have a way of communicating because they're moving harmoniously. And there's a branch of science called biophotons. And something that's interesting, it is said that sensitivity, that is, it's a sensitivity and almost like a feeling of each other, how the animals are moving as one in harmony with each other. It has been said that that sensitivity in human beings is numbed out in the presence of, get this, of cooking food. Now, we could say it's true, not true. I don't know. Intuitively, it stood out on my radar. You know, you hear many people talking about how the pituitary gland is calcified. And we do know that eating substances, I call them, substances masquerading as food, they definitely form blockages in the body. Most of us are more concerned with what we look like aesthetically and having a flat tummy for aesthetic reasons and just avoiding pain. However, in terms of our sensibilities and our ability to be intuitive, and as something I say, how can we expect the brain, the processing of this brain? It's said all the time, we use maybe 10% of the brain. How can we expect a high level of processing information, problem solving, high functioning of the brain? This is basic. If we are consuming substances that not only are they not adequate, ideal for the brain, that actually harden the brain, calcify the brain, poison the brain, how can we expect a high level of sensitivity or functioning if we are consuming, we can't even really call it food because they're things that are totally inappropriate for the body that have been shown to interrupt our neurotransmitters, right? The neurotransmitters and the functioning of the brain, the electricity in the body. I hear a lot of talk about alkaline food. I hear a lot about alkaline, and even we hear the term now electric foods, and we know that our body is full of electricity and water and activity is animated, and the spitty to the breath is the body's animated, and many of you may have seen or smelled what a dead mouse or a dead creature smells like. So the body, sometimes people ask me, what do I mean by living water? Your body is living. Most of your body, what is water? We've identified with stagnant water, as creatures pool around. It has its own smell. It's different from running water, waterfalls, right? Body of water that's moving and oxygenated is different from dead water or stagnant water, right? The way bacteria, things that, pile up there. The whole appearance of living water is different. So we're living beings. You're welcome to look into messages from water. Can't think of the Japanese scientist's name. But we know we have information in our DNA, right? So as women, if there might be some men folks out there, as women, what is our responsibility for what we are allowing to portal onto this planet? Do we just want some beings to keep us company? I'm not going to make that bad or wrong. Are we just wanting some beings to keep us company that we can control, that won't answer us back? Are we contributing beings that are going to be a contribution to society, or do we just want somebody just for us for that small amount of time that we can control? Are we considering the genetic information that's going to be encoded based on what we are eating, what we are watching, how we are feeling, how much vitamin D is synthesized through our skin, and most importantly, or just as importantly, who we choose the other half to connect with, to portal their energy, what they have been consuming. Angry person, traumatized, resolved trauma, character. This is literally information encoded into the DNA. So are we parenting and choosing to be a volunteer philanthropic position of portaling another spirit onto this side intentionally. What's going to be said 10, 20 years from now, as all of us want to have many of us want to have an experience. We've done all this other stuff, so we decide we want to be a parent or we want to have a baby. I don't even know if I want to say parent, because parenting is different from having a baby. We want to have a baby, we want to have an experience. And the baby is a short, excuse my garden nails, short, minute period of time. And then these human beings were shocked when they're telling us no. We're shocked when they're showing signs of a lack of empathy, when they didn't get enough lap time. We didn't have enough time. We didn't plan appropriately. Not saying everything has to be perfect, but we didn't plan for their mental, emotional well-being, let alone their protection, so that they are not violated by other vampire bites of trauma. The teachers they're going to be around, everything counts in terms of what little human beings are exposed to and what they are subjected to. So I ask you, how are we managing to produce narcissists? Do we have a role? Do we have a responsibility? How do we have many people that have been so traumatized that they're willing to off themselves and off other people? So I invite us to consider being very intentional and the responsibility which comes with being a steward. And I invite folks, I don't have all the answers. I'm not saying for anyone to be a social martyr, but to consider, if you don't have a child, consider that there are other human beings that really could use your support. There are many that could use parenting or just support, just some kind of support. That people, human beings that are already out here. And so as we neglect them, look at the prison system in the United States of America. Unheard of, millions. Unheard. And yes, we get it for profit. So we can sit around and we can be powerless. We can take on that perspective. Or we can think, it appears that we really underestimate our consumption patterns and our ability to affect change. And of course, it does start with ourselves. So there are a lot of narcissists. They didn't pop out of here from nowhere. They didn't just pop onto the planet out of nowhere. We're allowing them to portal in here, males and females, as being irresponsible. So at this point, spirituality occurs to me as responsibility. And usually if we're irresponsible, most likely we're irresponsible in several areas of our lives. And if we're baking an irresponsible cake, that's what we're putting out here. Let me know respectfully in the comments. Do you observe that we play a role, that we're responsible? Is there a price to pay for us continually just winging it and hoping for the best? I'm just going to wing it. No preparation, not ready, unsure, no vetting process. Yeah, we want to have an experience. It's so cute, and we're going to bring other human beings to this side. I don't know. Let me know what y'all think in the comments. That's why relaxation is so key. Are we bringing human beings out here that have a chance, to have an opportunity to relax and just be a human and play in safety, and then to enjoy the sunshine? Is that possible? What's the possibility for all the people that are already here? But we want to have our own experience. Anyway, y'all free to let me know what you think respectfully in the comments, because that just really just hit me. All right, y'all.